Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you all very much for attending the contest. Can we have the audio off, please? Can we have audio off, please? Thank you all very much for attending the contest rules refresher part 2. And as I've just said, please make sure that you keep your audio off at all times. And when you need to contact us, please use the chat function and we'll be able to make contact with you through that. So the people for this evening is myself, British Judo staff and event presentation. And I'm ably supported by Neil Malone, Senior National Referee from Scotland, who's acting as technical support. He'll be answering questions through the chat function. Mark Waterhouse, National A referee from the Eastern area, doing technical support and also answering questions. And of course, Dave Francis from the Northern area, Senior National Referee, and providing that technical support function also. So the programs that we've had to date, we started off the program on the 9th of December, and now we've moved to the second module, 27th of January. We're going to be looking at scoring, Osakami, inside and outside the contest area, and mate. So the module is pretty much aimed in a similar direction to the first one, which is to help coaches, athletes, and referees. All these people really need to know this good stuff about competition management. And on completion of the module, we'd hope that you'd be better prepared to analyse actions within a contest to current international standards. So that means that the rules that were changed after the last Olympic period, the level of the rules that we're dealing with tonight is exactly the current level. So the topics covered in this module, I'll just put them all up and then talk about them. We're going to revisit the Nagiwaza scoring review from part 1. So how do you score from a throwing action? We're going to revisit that. That's always worth a revisit. And then we're going to have a couple of opportunities for you to look at some examples. The first one is going to have a Kayashiwasa flavor. So that's the counter technique flavor and what sort of scoring examples we can get from there. The second one will have a Neiwaza versus Tachiwaza examples. So this is where it's a very, very fine line whether the athlete is actually in Neiwaza or in Tachiwaza. And of course, you can only score from a throw where the situation is considered to be in Tachiwaza. We'll then look at the Osakami criteria. And of course, we're not going to give you just the basic criteria. We're going to look at things that are right on the edge. And when is it Osakami and when isn't it Osakami? And then after that, we'll have a look at some examples where you'll get the opportunity to test yourself in a real situation. We're then going to look at inside, outside. So is the action in the contest area or outside the contest area? What is the interpretation of that? And then again, we'll look at some examples for at least 5 examples to see how you fare with that. And finally, we'll look at some review of mate, not every criteria within the mate function, but just some examples that relate to the video that we have later. We'd expect the module to last about 60 to 90 minutes, but please remember that all the questions through the chat room. So the module is designed to help you refresh interpretation skills, and the basic rules are there for everybody to read, and they seem quite simple until you get into the real world. So how are we going to interpret whatever happens onto the mat is what we're trying to do this evening. The content will be available for review later. So we can send you a link and you can review the whole module at your leisure at a later date. All these situations that we're going to give you are real. They're nothing contrived or awkward. They've not been manufactured in any way. It's video from events. all questions, please log them in the chat room and they'll be answered throughout. We've got the 3 guys who are in the support capacity this evening, and they will be giving you the answers that I hope that you're looking for. Anybody who's a coach and you want to get a technical revalidation towards your coaching award, any one or more of these contest rules modules will give you the credit for a coach revalidation. And I'll just say it again, please, 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 everybody keep their audio muted unless invited to switch on. It's unlikely you're going to be asked to switch it on, but so please keep it muted. And of course, the video is your choice. Whether you want to have the video on or off is entirely up to you. So we'll go straight into Nagiwaza scoring. So that's how do we score from a throwing technique. I'll give you the words and then we'll see what the words mean in reality. So when a contestant with control is key, throws the other contestant with real impact on the back, that means it must really have actually hit the mat, and with considerable force and speed. So that's a nice bunch of words, but what does it really mean? So the real world for scoring is when Uki lands on some part of their back and rolls across their back as indicated below. The action will be deemed ippon only if the complete action is continuous and control is maintained from the start to the end of the technique. So example 1, if the athlete was thrown and they landed on their right shoulder, just this little area up here, and then rolled down here to their left hip with control and continuous movement at a reasonable speed, you would still get ippon. Even though the first impact was just the shoulder, the roll diagonally down to the hip would make it ippon. And of course, it'll go the other way as well. If you land on the hip first and roll up to the shoulder, either way, doesn't matter. With control and speed and force, you will get ippon. The second example is just the reverse of the first one. It's exactly the same explanation. It's just the opposite shoulder and the opposite hip. The third example is, should an athlete be thrown? Let's say this athlete has been thrown towards their back and they've landed around about their belt, but quickly rolled up to their shoulders. So they've landed in this area round by the belt and rolled up to the shoulders. This with control, force and speed. This would also be considered to be ippon. And the final example would be this time when you land on one shoulder, and roll across to the other shoulder with control, force and speed. This will be ippon. If there's no rolling, but you land right across there with none of the back, it is still ippon. So it's basically that top bit across the shoulders must make contact with control, force and speed to gain ippon. There's other areas though for ippon, and we get some very, very athletic and dynamic people in judo now. So when a contestant avoids a back landing by bridging with their head and either 1 or 2 feet, this will be considered as ippon. So the first example, the white athlete has thrown the blue athlete and he lands in this sort of position with a head and both feet on the mat. This will be considered as ippon. The reason is because it's a dangerous thing to do, especially for the neck. If you're landing in this sort of position with some real force and impact, you could in extreme break your neck. So head and both feet on the mat is ippon. And the other example, of course, is head and 1 foot on the mat. This is also ippon. To get ippon, the back must be towards the mat, a few degrees towards the mat. So you can't be going to your front, it must be going to your back, and then it would be ippon. Couple of notes to make also is that an athlete cannot score from a keiashi waza, so from a counter technique, when they're throwing in a similar direction if they use their back to apply the technique. So if one athlete throws the other one on the way down takes control but lands on their own back to apply a secondary technique, it's not valid for scoring purposes. Also, to gain a score from a nagiwaza action, the situation must be considered to be in the tachiwaza phase at the start. So never can you score when the throwing action started what is considered to be in neiwaza. So if it's considered to be a neiwaza situation, you can't throw from neiwaza and score. So we move on to wazari. When one contestant with control, and notice this control bit stays there, throws the other contestant, but the technique is partially lacking in one or more of the other three elements necessary for ippon. So good examples here would be the athlete is thrown and they land all down the side. That could be, you know, the old sort of yuko position, actually on the side, or just a little bit of the back without ever getting towards the halfway point on the back, without getting there. That would be considered to be wazari. And of course, the other example is exactly the same, but on the other side. Or when an athlete has been thrown, blocks a backward landing with either both hands or elbows, or one of each. Both limbs must be in contact with the tatami at a single point in time. So, for example, one athlete is thrown with ouchigari. Let's say in this particular case, white has thrown blue with ouchigari, and blue has one elbow, two elbows are on the mat, the back is not. This is considered to be wazari. Again, the same scenario, but this time the blue athlete puts both hands on the mat. This is also considered to be wazari. The third example is just one elbow and one hand. It doesn't have to be two elbows or two hands. It can be one of each. The key point is a continuous movement, and at some point in that movement, both sides must be touching simultaneously, although it could be one elbow followed by the next one, as long as when the second one lands, the first one is still touching. Lastly, when uki rolls across the lower part of their back. So if an athlete is thrown, and this can sometimes happen, where they roll just around about the belt or just above the belt from one hip to the other hip, right across, but this top back part never touches. This is still considered to be wazari. Very important these days that to understand that scoring is not about the first impact. It's all about control and finishing the action. So when uki lands on this side, or when uki lands towards their front with a continuous action, so let's say they're towards the belly by about 45 degrees when they get thrown, but tori keeps driving continuously and they end in a sort of a 90-degree situation, this will still be considered to be wazari if control is continuously maintained throughout the technique. So I've given you a lot of words there for wazari and ippon, but I tend to think that the pictures tell a bigger story than the words. So we've got 4 examples of wazari and 4 examples of Ippon. So see what you think of this one. This is the first one, Wazari. So in this particular case, we had white with an attack, blue sidesteps it, drives white down, and it's very, very slow, but it is continuous. The action is continuous, and he rolls onto his back, but it's not sufficient for Ippon. There's not quite enough back there, but for sure the speed reduces it anyway. So this is Wazari. Second example. So this is the one rolling across the back that I spoke about, the lower back. So we've got white doing a right uchimata, and blue goes down, and there's the lower back making the first bit of contact, rolling across. At this point, it's a very clear Wazari. Notice the upper back is not touching the mat, and he rolls right across it. In this case, Wazari would be the best score to give. Third example. So this is one of those backward actions. So in this case, white comes in, O-Uchigari, blue goes down. As you can see there, the left hand goes down first. It then progresses to the left elbow, and the left elbow is still in contact, left elbow and right hand. So at this point, the score is going to be Wazari. Okay. So just let you see this one more time. It's sometimes not so easy to see when you're the referee, especially in this particular case where the referee was on the opposite side of where the arms and elbows were. And the fourth and final Wazari example is as follows. So our good old friend Uchimata, we tend to get a lot of challenges from Uchimata. So in this case, white comes in, blue hits him with Uchimata. White realizes he's going over, so he decides to spin out of it by going with the technique. Goes, 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 goes. At this point, it's as close to a perfect Wazari as you can get. And the old style Yuko, all down the side, commonly known as an overthrow in the old days. Although I do know in the old days, sometimes for an overthrow, there was a period of time where you got nothing. But today's judo, you get the applicable score, which is Wazari. So we'll move on to Ippon. So here we go. Let's see what you think of this. It's a very good quality Ippon in today's judo, this. So the white athlete comes in with the O-Uchigari, blue goes down. It's a bottom first, but this is really fast, really hard, and rolls are right up to the shoulders. This is a very, very clear Ippon in today's judo. Next one. This is an interesting one and not so easy for the referee to judge at speed. So the referee is actually given Wazari. I can tell you from experience that this particular referee is one of the best referees in the world, Veli Mate from Finland. But you just look what actually happened here, and the referee's position is blinded, but he's obliged to make a decision, because if he doesn't say anything, that means his decision is no score. So he has to make some sort of decision. So here we come. So blue comes over with a Siatoshi type action. White goes over. Right at this point in time, very momentarily, there's enough across his back, his upper back. Remember we said earlier, you can roll from one shoulder to the other either way, or you can land right across the back. So he's come over. At this point, it's Ippon. And then, of course, he's tried to roll away to get away with the Ippon. But there's plenty in that for Ippon, no problem. Next Ippon. So this one, again, leg across. It's like a Haroi-goshi type action this time. So he goes down, and this time white lands on the left shoulder and rolls across the back to the right shoulder. At this point, he's very, very clearly across it. Nice and easy to see in slow motion, but not always that easy to see as the referee. But this is a good quality Ippon. Next Ippon. Again, another difficult one to see, especially from the referee's position. But if we look at this, so blue comes in. So kata is a Tayatoshi, something like that. Goes over. So white's going down. At this point, white has got impact with the tatami with the head and nothing else. At this point, the toes of his right foot are touching the mat at the same time as his head. So at this point, the Ippon is scored. But if you're not really sure, the other foot goes down flat anyway. So you get one foot and the head, and then you get the other foot and the head. So you get two bites of the cherry to get that one. Either one, it's Ippon. Okay, so now we get a little opportunity for you to test yourselves. I did ask everybody to bring a pen and a paper in the email. Hopefully you've bought them. Don't worry if you haven't. You'll have to try and remember the answers, but a pen and paper would be better. Also, don't worry, we're not going to pick on anybody and ask them to share their answers. The answers that you decide yourself on the first shot are entirely for your own learnings. So we'll go through this video, which will have 5 different examples. Each of the 5 examples will be shown 3 times each. The first twice for each example tends to be the more difficult view, and the third one a little bit easier than the first 2. What we're going to do, we're going to go through all 5 examples. That's why I want you to write the answers down. We'll then give you the answers, the official answers that the EJ or IJF have decided, and then we'll rerun the video so as you can decide how those answers fit, if indeed they're any different to what you've got. The flavor on this is Kayashiwaza, so it's counter techniques. Let's go. So you're looking to see if the counter technique is valid and you would give a score, would you? Here's the second one. So blue attacks, white skips it, Teiwaza action. We'll get the other view, which you might like a bit better. Third example. Blue attacks. What actually caused that backward action? That's what you've got to decide. And what was it worth, if anything? Fourth example. This is a difficult one. This is a difficult one. It is difficult, this. On this one, even the coach is trying to score it. Okay, those are your 5 examples. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to write down the answer to the last one. And then we'll look at the official answers. So the official answers for the Kayashiwaza. In the first example, it's considered to be a Wazari white. So white were the Kosotogari was considered to be valid and putting blue onto their side, giving a Wazari. The second one was considered to be Ippon white. So this is the one where blue attacked, white sidestepped and made Sukiyashi movement. So all Teiwaza. Third one was Ippon blue. So blue starts the technique, but white does a really good defense, but then blue changes direction and drives white backwards. The fourth one, Ippon blue. Blue starts and then later finishes with an Ouchigari. This Ouchigari is a little bit difficult to see, to be honest, but it is there. But when we have another look at that one, hopefully we can try and pick that out. And the last one is no score because blue attacked and white used her own back in the Kayashiwaza action to make the throw. From a contest management perspective, the action is valid to continue into Neiwaza, but it's not valid to score. So now you're armed with your own answers and the official answers. We'll go back to the video and we'll run it again and see what you think. So this is the Kosotogari counter. You're going to see it the same as before, 3 times. So blue attacks, white sweeps, blue lands on the side. Blue attacks, white sweeps, blue on the side. And we'll see it from the other side, which is also easy. I don't think there's too much bother. This one, blue attacks and white gets the leg out the way and uses all Teiwaza. Sukiyashi, and there was enough back in that for Ippon. Third one. Blue tries to throw forwards, gets blocked, and then drives back. Forwards, and then drives back, purposefully driven back. So blue is credited with that score. And that is enough for Ippon. So watch blue's left leg. It's slight, but it's enough. Watch your left leg. Very, very slight, but it's enough. This one, it's using the back. So blue attacks, white comes round and uses a back to take blue over. Cannot use a back in a similar direction, but as you saw with the referee there, he didn't give the score, which was correct, and he also allowed continuance into Newaza. So we've been through those. So this time, we're now looking for a score, and the score may be valid if it's in Tachiwaza. So this is titled Newaza versus Tachiwaza. If the technique is deemed to be in Newaza, you obviously can't score from a throw. You can only score from a throw from a Tachiwaza action. So let's see what we've got here. So blue is flat down and white decides they still want to play. You have to decide what you think about that particular action. You get a chance from the other side like before. Number two. Again. So it goes down with the throw. Goes over. And from the other side. Number three. Interesting one. Pay a lot of attention to everything that happens on this one. Okay, number four. Just look what happens. So blue attacks. And over he goes. On the other side. And from the other side. Okay. Hopefully you've got your 5 answers down. We'll look at what the official answers are. The official answers. So the first one, no score because Uki was on both knees and elbows at the start. So blue was down and both knees, both elbows were down, and then white pulled him out of the ground, which he's entitled to do, but only for transition. Cannot score when the other athlete has got all 4 points down. Number 2, no score. The technique on this one was deemed to have started in Newaza. And when we review, I would encourage you to look at the way the athlete locks in for sort of a kataguruma type action and puts the tension on. He does raise his right leg afterwards, but that's too late. The technique has already started because he's locked in. Number 3 was Wazari White. And the reason it was Wazari White is White came from Newaza up into Tachiwaza first. So in today's judo, you can go into and out of Newaza and then apply the action. And this is what happened in this particular case. And of course, it happened again in option 4. White came into Tachiwaza, then blew through. With Zari White for number 5, White came into Tachiwaza and then through. So if you just want to make a quick note of those official answers. So I've got 2 no scores and then 3 Wazaris. And we'll go back to the video and see where we go. So all 4 points, both knees, both hands down. White turns them over, can continue Newaza from here. The transition and movement for Newaza is fine, but it's not fine for the score because blue was completely down. And that is one of the criteria that's not allowed. If blue is completely down, it's not allowed to score. Number 2. So this one, look, he's locked in and then his right knee comes up. Watch him lock in first. So throws, then he locks in with the arm, lock in, both knees are still down. And now he brings the right knee up, but that's too late because the technique has started. So again, okay for transition, but not okay for scoring. It's easier to see from this side. So down, both knees in, he's locked in, and now he brings it up halfway through the technique. So it's a no score situation. So this is a Wazari White. So watch White. White goes into Newaza and then comes out of Newaza. So White's in Newaza, comes up into Tachiwaza, and then throws. And if you notice, blue did not have all 4 points down at no point. So that was sufficient for Wazari. This time, Wazari blue. So I'll just stop this one there because what I want to say here is, so we've got White's attempted throw, but when blue does that, their technique, it's not truly a Kayashiwaza because there's a slight interruption in the throw. So therefore he can use his back because it's considered to be a new throw. And it would have been a really good idea if I hadn't have done that. Right, here we go. Down. Notice the slight pause from blue before applying the technique. So White down. Stopped. It's a new action. This is not Kayashiwaza. over, rolls him over. So he is entitled to use his back, which he did, and scores Wazari. So watch it from this side also, down, blocked, and then he throws him onto his opposite side, which is Wazari. So the last one, number 5. Watch white come from Neiwaza to Tachiwaza. So he's down, Neiwaza. So white brings one leg up. So he's only got one knee down. And I have to say this, in my opinion, is right on the very, very limit. But on the limit or not, if it's valid, it's valid. And that was just about enough for a Wazari score. There was a few little questionable bits there, but if you look at it in slow motion, there was enough in it. Okay, we've looked at all those answers. So now we'd like to look at Osakami. The first thing we're going to do is look at the criteria. So firstly, we've got a couple of pictures of our good friend Winston Gordon. So this time we've got an athlete who's applying or attempting to apply an arm lock. Of course, this can never be Osakami because there's no proper downward torso pressure from Tori. For Osakami to be valid, the torso of Tori must be applying downward pressure or at least side pressure to Uki to validate the Osakami. This particular situation, those of you who have been around the block a few times will remember that Neil Eckersley first started using this technique, and he used it at the '84 Olympic Games where he managed to get a bronze medal. Fantastic. But in this particular situation, this is considered to be valid because now the white athlete has got his body, so his chest and his stomach are coming up and over the blue athlete, and he's actually providing downward pressure. And also the purpose of this is not solely going for an arm lock, it is to actually pin the blue athlete to the mat. In this particular case, the white athlete wants to try a Sangaku, but just look at this Sangaku. It's 2 legs around the head. You cannot hold someone by only holding their head. So cannot Sangaku only the head and expect for the hold to be valid. It's not a legal action to be done. It would just be a mate situation unless something really, really drastic happened in addition, but just holding it would be a mate situation. And we've got another scenario which is holding the head, but this time the blue athlete is holding the white athlete's head. As you can see, the white athlete knows the rules. He's put his hands up as if to say to the referee, this is not valid, please call mate. So it's invalid, cannot hold only the head. Not valid. Again, just a mate situation. This particular case, we see a lot of this. So the athlete's at the side, but he's got one leg across, one arm across. So their torso will be a little bit on the side of white's torso, and there'll be close contact. So valid. Torso pressure is clear. I say torso pressure, it's not necessarily, he probably has got a little bit of downward pressure there, but it's not necessarily downward. It can be absolute side contact. This particular case is an interesting one. And this is where white is sitting on top of blue and doesn't have enough control. This used to be a valid Osakami, but now it's not considered to be the case. Clearly, to be holding blue there white has got probably their right hand on blue's left lapel and pulling the lapel through. You can't see it because they're sitting on their own hand. So the key part with this type of hold, even though you might think there is downward torso pressure and blue is towards the back, what the rules need is the arm that's highest needs to go through the middle of white's legs and be hanging out the other side. It cannot be valid in this scenario. Next one. This is a technique that's right on the borderline. So it's valid. I put minor torso pressure apparent because there isn't really very much. So you've got sort of the right side of white on the right side shoulder of blue. You got this arm across. This hold it doesn't look that strong, to be honest, if you haven't been in it, but I can tell you that it is quite a strong hold, and quite a lot of top athletes will get into this sort of position. This is marginally valid. It is valid. If this situation here is loose, this athlete will escape. So that's a good telltale for that type of technique. You tend not to see this type of technique in developed, sort of level 1, level 2 competitions, and probably very rarely in level 3. But there could be the odd athlete who trains it and applies it. The final Osakami is valid, Ura position. So turning your back to somebody and holding them hadn't used to be a valid hold, but this was validated some years ago. So this is also a valid Osakami. So you've had 4 valid and 4 invalid Osakamis. So now, again, armed with your pen and paper, we're going to look at some Osakami situations and see what you think. So pay a lot of attention to this particular one, on why you think it might or might not be Osakami. Referee thinks it's Osakami. So you're going to get 2 shots on these on the Newaza, 1 from each side. So, number 2. The timing of Osakami is also very critical. It's important that it's called at the right time. So number 3. So from the opposite side, classic turnover from this sort of position, then decides to turn it into some sort of hold, probably the Eckersley hold if he was trying to get that. But it's a little bit unstable, but you need to decide whether it was not Ippon, if it decides whether it's a hold down or not. So number 4, what are you thinking here? Is all this good stuff valid or not? And number 5. This is another quite borderline one, but you need to decide whether it was Osakami or not. Quite a difficult one because you can't see everything that you may need to see to make a clinical decision. Okay, give you 3 or 4 seconds to write down your last answer. And then we'll now go into the official answers for Osakami. So the first one, there was considered to be no Osakami because it was a Shido for white for gripping inside the trouser end. When we look back at it, if you didn't notice on the first time, I guess many of you did notice it, but white grabs the end of blue's trouser leg and puts fingers inside the end, so it's immediate mate Shido for white. So no Osakami, of course. Number 2, this was a bit of a scrappy one at the beginning, but it's really, really important to time the announcement of Osakami as soon as they meet the criteria. Not instantly they meet the criteria, but as soon as you feel they have sufficient control. Otherwise, if you wait 2 or 3 seconds, maybe that 2 or 3 seconds is vital at the end of the Osakami and reduces the score from wazari to nothing or rippon to wazari. In this particular case, make a note of the time. The EJU would have liked the referee to have called Osakami at 1:06. And of course, anybody who's not familiar with the clocks, EJU clocks, the clocks count downwards. So when it's actually put on, I think it's about 1:02. So they lost about 4 seconds. And the third example was, again, no Osakami, and it was considered that there was no Keza Shio or Ura position established. To be in a Keza Shio or Ura position is part of the criteria. You could pedantically look at some of the situations that we see and say they are strictly not in one of those positions. But this one was considered just stretching the imagination just a little bit too much. And we can have another look at that on the second pass. 4 was considered to be Osakami, and also the referee calling Tokita was considered to be a good timing. So really the referee, you shouldn't be calling Tokita immediately. The control appears to have gone for a hold. You should give momentary opportunity to Tori to regain the control, but you need to be really aware of the judo and what it really means and call the Tokita in a timely fashion. So maybe a second or so later, it's not been gained, it's not been regained, it is Tokita. And the 5th Osakami it wasn't there at all. It was considered that there was no real control from the side or the top. We said, strictly speaking, there should be downward torso pressure, but side pressure is just about acceptable. And we didn't see enough of this in this particular scenario. So now you got the 5 answers. We'll go back and you can have your second show of the Osakami video. Here we go. So here we go over, and White, the naughty boy, with his left hand grips the inside of Blue's trousers, and the referee really should have called Mate and given him a Shido. I think you find this guy over here, he's pointing to it, so he's seen it from the side. So this was Shido White. Next one is the one that should have been called earlier. So now it's sufficient. And he's waited an extra 4 seconds. So that could be make a difference, and he could lose a full point for that. You could see it easier from this side. The third one. Now just watch this. So here, White is upright. He's not giving his body downwards onto Uki, and he's certainly not at the side, because on the side, Uki would have to be on the mat. Watch the way White is upright. His body, his torso is not sufficiently forcing down to qualify for Osakami. This is not enough. He's just waiting for a reaction so as he can take the Juji Gatami. And that's not an acceptable scenario for Osakami. Number 4, the Osakami. So it's a bit of a scrappy one, but it's valid. You go over the shoulder, and and the timing was pretty good. So Osakami on, and really trying hard. And we tend to get these scenarios with the lightweight girls quite a lot, because they are so much more flexible than any other group. Number 5. Now this one is not considered to be Osakami at all. Blue is round the back of White. It cannot be Osakami when you're round the back. Now White's turned in the other way, so the back is not towards the mat, and the Osakami has been allowed to continue. But it's really not Osakami. The back, the worst case scenario, the shoulders must be at 90 degrees. And 2 or 3 times there, the Osakami was not valid. But it's allowed to continue. Unfortunately, I mean, I know this referee is a good referee. So, sometimes with Osakami, the referee can be a little bit better off by taking an extra step backwards, and you can see more by being further away. Okay, so we've done the Osakami. Now we're going to look at inside versus outside. So some details for you. To be valid, so by valid, I mean the technique or action to be considered inside the contest area. So for Tachiwaza and Neiwaza, contestants can complete a continuous action that started in the contest area, although both athletes may be completely in the safety area when finalized. That bunch of words, what that really means is, if you're in the colored bit in the middle and you start something and continuously keep that movement going, you can finish the movement in the safety area, even though both athletes are in the safety area. But please note, the referees must ensure the safety of all involved, because logically speaking, there must be an end to it. Otherwise, you'd end out on the car park if you just kept on being continuous. So if you're going on to the next mat and there's a contest going on, you need to stop it. If you're going off the edge of the mat, and of course the referee needs to pay particular attention when you're going towards the scoreboard. If you're at a high level event, you've probably got a scoreboard that is certainly with well, the rules are it must be no closer than 50 centimeters. So you don't want to be thrown within a meter of the edge into the telly. You're going to break the telly and you're going to get hurt. Invalid. So contestants who go onto the safety area. So this is where a contestant decides completely of their own volition to go into the safety area with both feet without any positive action. So no kazushi, no attack. As soon as they land the second foot, they have committed the offense. You wouldn't immediately call mate if you thought that the other person had an opportunity for an advantage. But you need to be mindful that once that's happened, they have committed a Shido offense. Also, if one athlete, again, of their own volition, puts one foot into the safety area and leaves it there without any action, this will also be Shido. So you can step out with one foot and bring it back in, but you mustn't put one foot out, do nothing and leave it there. Otherwise, that will be Shido. So, same scenario as before, with all the other videos. Inside and outside, you need to decide whether it was in or whether it was out. You got your same format with 5 videos. Please take your own notes. We're going to watch all 5 videos. We'll give you the 5 answers and then we'll do a review. Let's have a look. So inside or outside. See, this one traveled quite a lot. So think about, is the action continuous or not? Some really good testing examples there, because it's some of these situations are quite difficult. You know, we title these modules as interpretation. So the interpretation on things like this, some of these in truth could go either way. So they are very, very fine line decisions in some of these cases. But let's have a look at what the official answers are, and then we'll try and put some sense into those official answers by re-looking at the video. So the first one, this is the one where the athletes seem to have a hell of a lot of activity outside of the contest area, and it was considered to be an outside situation. So there was quite early on, when both athletes were in the safety area, that the action had very momentarily stopped. That's the stop of the continuation. The referee should call mate, and of course they did change direction a little bit, but they were going towards the telly as well. So if you're going towards the scoreboard, which is a television, we also need to be aware of that, because it's very, very unsafe if you were to have a collision with a telly. Number 2, this was considered to be a valid attack from white who is inside. So this was a valid situation. Number 3, With number 3, white's attack is a continuation of the blue initial action. So blue makes an action, but white immediately and continuously or continually makes a secondary action, which is also considered valid in the safety area. Number 4, blue's attack is a continuation of white's initial action. So it's basically the same again, but the colours are swapped around. And 5, this is a situation where white makes a very substantial attack and gets a real reaction from blue, and then decides to immediately and continuously have another bite at an almost identical technique, and is successful on the second go. So hopefully armed with the answers that you've got there, we'll now go back and look at the video. So the first one, mate, when both are outside. Look at it early on. Mate. It was, yeah, mate. It's there was just a little bit of wrestling there, which mate. So this one, let's have a look at that one again. So blue's gone out under pressure, and we don't rob white. Number 3. So again, this one, go back to number 3. Watch the action of the second athlete. So it's all in the movement. Action, and immediately there is no pause whatsoever. Number 4. And this one, the first athlete engages, and before they're disengaged, the blue counters. So this is a clear score. First attack, second attack, number 5. Watch, attack, down, and attack again. So she repositions herself and makes the throw successful. Okay, the last part that we're going to have, and we're really testing ourselves this evening. It's quite a lot of content, so but we have got 21 minutes left to get us to past. That's the maximum we said we'd do. So mate situations. So there are a few applicable examples for the video, but this is by no means meant to be an exhaustive list of all mate scenarios. This is just to help us with the video. So first possible mate situation is when the athletes are in the safety area and the action has stopped being continuous. It's what we've just seen, so we already know all about that one. The second one, in the case where one or both athletes commit an infringement, is a mate situation, but you need to be very careful. Where only one athlete commits an infringement, the referee needs to take a lot of care that you don't call mate and disadvantage the athlete who was not penalised. So, you know, a typical situation in Newaza, for example, the person being held commits a minor offence. You don't call mate and let them get up. If at all possible, you allow it to continue, and if it's tip on, you don't even bother to give the penalty. When progression in Newaza has ceased for both athletes. This is another mate situation. So when both athletes, when the athletes are in Newaza situation, and neither one is progressing towards a score, this is a mate situation. Next one, when one athlete who is applying a kensetsu waza, so one athlete is applying an arm lock to the other athlete, but the other athlete lifts them clear of the mat. This is a mate situation. It's quite a dangerous situation. So it has to be mate immediately because they could get slammed back into the mat. And of course, the catch-all, when in any other case, the referee deems it necessary to do so. The referee hasn't got carte blanche to call mate. They need to explain themselves why they did it. But it's more of a safety thing. So, mate situations. Your question to you is, should these situations be mate or should they be allowed to continue? Mate or not? So all you need to write down is mate or no mate. So same scenario, 5 examples. Let's have a go. What do we think happened there? So from the other side, white. Referees allowed it to continue. Was that correct or not? Number 2. Referees called mate. Was that a good timing of mate? Think about it. Think about your judo knowledge and your judo skill. Was this a good timing of mate or not? Number 3. The referee calls mate. Was that good mate or not so good? And number 5. So throw. Okay, I'll just give you a chance just to write your answers down. A couple of seconds. Okay, the first one was considered to be mate, immediately blue is lifted from the mat. And just in case there's anybody out there, I didn't mention it earlier, who thinks we've spelt mate wrong, we've been reliably told that mate does have 1 T, not 2 T's. Much literature will have double T, but we're reliably told that it's 1 T. So number 1, immediately blue is lifted from the mat. When we say immediately lifted from the mat, so if someone has long hair and their hair is touching the mat, that doesn't count because hair doesn't provide real impact with the mat, nothing to purchase off. So if hair is dragging on the mat, but everything else is in the air, it's mate. Number 2, no mate. There was some real progress going in Newaza. I think this was the one where the leg was trapped in between Uki's both legs, and they were inching it out. They really ought to have been given more opportunity to get that leg out, because they had the top tied up quite nicely. Number 3 was a mate. Again, immediately blue is lifted from the mat. In this particular case, the referee did call mate, but it was at the second bite. I think it was another one of those cases where the hair was dragging, but it really should be mate on the first lift. This one, mate, white grips inside blue's trouser leg end. I was pleased to say our good friend Stefan, British referee, got this one spot on. Timing was real good. Well done, Stefan. So white grips inside blue's trouser leg end. And the last one, no mate, continuous action. This was a bit of an injustice, quite an injustice to Torrey, because not only was it not mate, it should have also been a Wazari score for the throw and allowed the opportunity for quick transition into Newaza, and maybe even finish the fight with a second Wazari in Newaza. So I'll just let you dot those answers down. We've got just enough time to get through. Sorry to have rushed you a little bit, but wanted to get through the material. And of course, these recordings are available for you to use at your own leisure later, should you wish to do so. So we'll now have a rerun of mate. So the first one, this is the one where we said immediately blue is lifted from the mat. It should be mate. So white, mate. On that first lift should be mate. So watch from the other side. So white lifts, mate. The hair was touching, but that doesn't count. This next one is the one where they needed a little bit more time. So blue has trapped white's leg. White is making sure the top end is all secured and had just got the left foot in to push down, but it's an unfortunate mate. So they're tying up the top, made it all secure. Now they've got the balance, just about to put the foot in, and unfortunately that was simultaneous with the mate. Deserved another opportunity there, but never mind. 3, mate. And then the second lift, yes, they were within a second of each other, but to be absolutely technically correct, it was the first lift. It was a pretty good mate, actually. Here's one. So we're coming up. White has actually got the fingers inside blue's trousers. On the way up. And Stefan gave the mate, and of course that was correct. The final one. Now this one is a Wazari to blue and continuation. Took control, Wazari to blue, and had the opportunity to continue. Okay. We've been through those. So we've actually made it through the module. There's a lot of content to pump you with a lot of stuff in that 80 minutes. But as I say, if you want to go through at your own leisure, I'll be able to provide you with a link in the next day or two of where the video is stored, and you can view it at your own leisure. So how are we doing on the questions?
Hi, Keith. So we've had a few in.
Yeah.
The one that stands out that was a bit of a question mark after was on the Osakami section, particularly in relation to the third video. I don't know if you've got time to quickly skip back to that one.
So number 3, did you say?
Yes, number 3.
Okay. That was a lucky guess. Right, here we go. So, right. So, what's the question on this one?
So there was a question came in after the videos had gone through, and there was a comment made that was Tori going for an arm lock or was he going for the Osakami?
Okay, let's check this one out. So the official answer was no Osakami. So I've stopped it near to the critical point there. It doesn't move much from there unless I'm mistaken. So in this particular scenario, blue has got good control, white, sorry, has got good control of blue's arm and probably really wanting the Jujigatame. However, the hold is not considered valid because blue is too upright and not considered to be applying enough torso. So torso, just to be really, really clear, is considered to be your body without your arms, legs, and your head, although they do count the head in the criteria. So without your arms and your legs, your body or your head applying downward pressure really isn't happening sufficiently enough in this case to be called Osakami. It's a real fine line one, but that is considered to be the case. The referee.
Sorry, Keith. After he goes for the arm lock, he then goes for the hold down. He goes for the arm lock first, and then the hold down after that. There.
So in this case, so if that's the attempt at the hold down, he's got no torso downward pressure. You need to have your body pressing down, or at a minimum, in some of those obscure techniques, absolute contact at the side is considered acceptable, but not in this particular scenario. So he's at the side, and if, see the way his body's up. If this body had been brought downwards and putting pressure on, the Osakami would be valid. But in this case, what it's felt, technically what it's felt is he's holding on the threat of an arm lock. We're waiting for blue to twitch. Usually they twitch when Osakami is called. This grasp normally breaks, and then the Jujigatame comes. So this is considered to be just on the threat rather than meeting the criteria. It's a fine line, I know, but unfortunately, there's got to be a limit somewhere, and you might be able to find an example and say, well, what about this case? And yeah, you could be right. So you see, there's no downward pressure from his body. You can actually see that better from this side. No torso downward pressure on him. Is that satisfactory? Anything more, Mark?
So just a question about the link. So having been on the first one, I don't actually recall receiving a link for the webinar afterwards. Is that something that will be sent to everybody, or do we need to request it?
So what we've done, we do it on request, but it's just as easy to send out to everybody if everybody wants it. There's no secrets. Everybody can have it. Is that the recommendation?
Only one person's asked for it.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Anything else that we need to clarify?
Nothing that I see in chat. Thank you, Keith.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Really appreciate everybody coming this evening. It's always a great reward to me when we get so many people here. Absolutely fantastic. I hope the module has been useful to you, whether you're an athlete, a coach, a player, or anybody else involved in judo. I hope it's been useful to you. If there are any really specifics that you'd like answered, by all means, you can email us and we'll give you the best possible answer that we can. But otherwise, I really hope to see you all again. The next module is on a Tuesday, and it's the 23rd of February. What we do on these modules each time, we have the bulk of it is a different subject to last time. So here we finished off the Nagiwaza scoring by having Kayashiwaza and Tachi and Neiwaza type borderline stuff. And we moved into these other areas, and the next module will move away from scoring and into other areas and look at some penalty situations. So without further ado, thank you all very much indeed. If anybody does need to contact me, fine, please do so. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all very much. And thank you very much to the tutors who have acted in a technical support role. So that's Mark, Neil and David. So many thanks to them as well. Thank you, people.